Hi, I'm Lynda Katz, Wilner. Kashonna, Holland, and I have been working together over the past year to bring DEI conversations into the workplace. We've done trainings, we've done workshops, we've done interviews. In fact, in the past year, we both received our certificate of DEI in the workplace through the University of South Florida's Muma School of Business. Again, we're coming into organizations both virtually and in person to just add these DEI conversations so we can help shape the culture of the workplace. And today we're excited to interview Michael Ogunsanya, who is the founder of MindStand. But I'm going to pass it over to you, Kashonna, so you can interview and introduce Michael.
Thank you so much, Lynda. And again, we are excited about having you, Michael, today. What we want to do is we just really want to get to know you. Can you just give us a little bit about your story and how did you start on this DEI journey?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Lynda and Kashonna. I'm really excited to share really what motivated me behind MindStand. Fun story, I turned 23 a week ago, so I'm definitely a young person in technology who has been so gravitated towards this conversation of DEI. And to be honest, I didn't anticipate co-founding a company like MindStand until I experienced workplace discrimination firsthand. It was an unfortunate story about how I was working in a Fortune 10 engineering firm. Excited to be a part of this culture, I dressed the part. In what my mom would say is my Sunday's best, I came into work with a button-up shirt, glasses, excited to be a part of this community and culture. About 3 weeks into the program, I remember I came into work and I wore a bit of a different appearance. I wore a polo shirt and khakis. Mind you, the dress code there was t-shirt and jeans. But I remember young Michael, ready to learn and matriculate into this company, sitting down at my desk, and my supervisor came up to me. I'm a white man from Delaware. There's a bit of an age difference, and he came up to me almost in a manner that would be endearing, but what he said wasn't. He said, "Hey, Michael, I almost didn't recognize you there. I thought you were like a thug or something." And in that moment, everything changed. I know this company has well intentions. I know my supervisor just wanted to make a connection, but clearly the words that he used weren't correct. And I soon saw, for me, as well as thousands of employees in the workforce today, there aren't many options to let your company know how they could be getting better or address the situation. There's really two, based on what I researched that night. The first is conflict mitigation, a common strategy where I reach out to the HR manager, the supervisor, and within their role, the best thing that they can do is put me in a room with the supervisor to facilitate dialogue. And thinking back at the time, I'm 18, and I know I would have been responsible for addressing the conversation, educating him on dialogue. It really felt like I had to teach him how what he said was a microaggression. And for me, as well as millions of people again in the workforce, that just feels a bit uncomfortable. Especially over the events of last year, there's a certain level of drainage, emotional drainage happening from employees. So the question is, how can you be a bit more proactive and inclusive around creating dialogue? And that's the entire genesis of MindStand, a simple software solution that integrates in the data that the company lives with, how they communicate, to help coach every member of the company towards inclusive communication, provide proactive alerts on potentially harmful language, and give you a bird's eye view on the overall inclusion rate and status of your organization. This is an amazing idea that came to be for me as a college entrepreneur. Now, as we progressed, learning so many stories empowered me to share my story behind MindStand.
And Michael, that's a very powerful story, how that propelled you into seeing the need for something like this. And I'm sure yours isn't the only story like that. When you developed this platform, how receptive have organizations been to this concept?
You can imagine, Lynda, when we developed this in 2018, the first thing we had to do was educate CEOs that you can export these emails. These Slack messages can be screenshots that employees can file for EEOC charges. I think we're seeing today in a company like Netflix just last week, in a way, a year ago, the way that you as a CEO think about your business and communicate to one another sets the tone. That is permanent data that sits within the company for everyone to view. So by and large, when we first created MindStand, there's a certain level of education towards digital citizenship. I remember in 2019, we marched on the Capitol and met with Maryland senators to speak towards what digital citizenship meant for K through 12. But soon as work from home became such a staple during COVID, we're helping educate business owners towards what inclusion means at the most basic level of communication. But we do get questions. How is this going to help us? How am I ensuring that I'm telling them that mine stands here as a point of strength rather than a point of surveillance or reactiveness? That's really where MindStand shines. The MindStand bot, a simple tool that's a resource for every employee, where it introduces itself to each employee, provides anonymous reporting, whether you as a second year software engineer want to highlight someone who's creating a great inclusive environment, but do it anonymously, or you'd like to let other members know, especially those HR managers who their jobs is to relate to the company, helping them get feedback in an anonymous way so that they can be able to have that quantitative data towards the inclusion space. So education is the biggest piece, and I'm really glad to say we'll be releasing a number of educational content towards the end of this year and going into 2022.
That is awesome, Michael. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, why do you think this product is so important to companies and organizations? But I think that you pretty much already covered that. So I really want to ask, how or have you met any resistance from any companies as you are presenting this product?
Yes, I can definitely say for the people who understand MindStand, who are in that point where they know as a CEO, I need to take that next step. There are questions, this barrier towards how do I communicate this to others? Will I come off as big brother? But the thing that we explain to them is on this side is progress, where you want to be, the DEI goals you have. But to get to that level of progress, you have to understand where you need to get better. It's all about metrics driven performance, especially being data over the past 10 years being the main driver for business decisions. Your chief marketing officer has a dashboard to see engagement on company posts. Your CFO has dashboards that they can share with you. But when it is that end of the year meeting with leadership, how are you ensuring that your HR managers, your people officers have that same level of quantitative feedback? Because we're seeing brands at the highest level fail. A company like Adidas had to fire their chief human resource officer because during an all hands meeting, when leadership asked her, Karen, what was the employee response towards Black Lives Matter? She said it was just noise. And employees heard that. And that causes this shift, this inner rift of this young, new millennial and Gen Z generation of workers who want to feel socially bought in to the environment and the mission of the company. So the biggest question is, how do I communicate that a tool like MindStand, the quantitative analytics, the AI towards understanding culture is going to solve the human problems that a lot of employees honestly are too, worried to say out loud. And that's really where MindStand shines. And it's great that we are working with a number of upcoming companies, 170 member tech companies. We're looking at larger financial institutions, one of the biggest in the country. And the whole goal is how can you make these human problems much more solvable? And MindStand AI is succeeding there.
Michael, you when we had talked, you gave a scenario, like an example scenario. I think it would be helpful for people to know when you're monitoring these conversations, could you give us an example of something that the bot would pick up on?
Absolutely. The whole goal, and the reason why we started MindStand within the first months, we created a partnership with the clinical psychology lab at the University of Maryland, all focused on how to bring in experts in psychology, in dialogue and open communication to train this system. We know machine learning bias is a huge topic, so we knew we needed the most diverse sets of eyes and expertise on MindStand. And that's really where it excels, where we give the end user whether it's your first time using MindStand, the ability to train MindStand and adjust it to the culture, the language of your community. To give an example, a company came to us, a chief people officer said, I really think MindStand can be super helpful. And there seems to be an issue, especially during COVID and work from home, that's not getting better. An employee came to me in honesty and said that the new supervisor we appointed just isn't addressing their team and the people that works under him correctly. And he would use a certain term. It's not a four-letter word. It's nothing that any other system could pick up. It was the term, if you would just. Bill, if you would just complete this assignment, we would all be able to go home for the weekend. Sam, if you would just turn in the pull requests, then I wouldn't have to wait and waste my weekend to work with you. Those kind of small languages accompanied with certain sentiments afterwards can really cause this rift where employees just don't know how to address it. Do I need to schedule a one-on-one meeting with you? Do I have to be the person to tell the chief people officer, which creates this level of, anxiousness where you don't know what's going on, but you only know once it's an issue. Those kind of small nuances can easily be corrected and identified by the MindStand tool, and we create a simple incident management process. So it's not an infraction, it's not a red mark on your name. It's a simple way for you to schedule a meeting and encourage more dialogue between you and the next person.
So I see that as an educational tool as well, because we know the power of words, and the word just has such impact. And again, how much do we misinterpret text messages and emails that are sent to us without hearing tone of voice? So it seems like, of course, I don't think this can pick up tone of voice, but at least to look at the words and say, wait a minute, what is this person really saying, and how are people responding to it? So that's brilliant. That sounds brilliant.
Absolutely. I think it's those that's why we call them microaggressions, that we definitely want to make sure that they are addressed. And I was thinking, as you were talking, Michael, I was thinking how some people fix that issue by sending people to training. They never address the specific issue. They just say, go to training for conflict management and resolution, but never seem to address the issue one-on-one. And of course, this does not fix the problem. If we don't develop constructive confrontation skills, we miss a major opportunity. So I'm really, really happy that the bot is doing some of that constructive confrontation, if you will.
Absolutely. And it's a real kind of topic. It's something that people feel. And the way that I love articulating it, really materializing it when I talk to HR managers is, how often have you gotten a complaint from an employee that said, I feel like this training has nothing to do with me? Or when you bring in speakers and it's an all hands meeting, how many times do you feel like people aren't engaged in those conversations? We all recognize that training is important. So how can you ensure that the right people are in the training, that the right content? Imagine if there was a training around encouraging behavior and you could have screenshots from your actual Slack community, of course anonymized, but of real things happening in your community that is encouraging. We all want to feel bought in while we're hundreds of miles from the next person. So we need to have tools, trainings, and just educational content to help you get there.
Yeah, and Michael, from what I've heard in the past speaking with you, this isn't necessarily a tool that's punitive. I think you had said to me there are some instances where the bot may pick up something, and then the person might say, oh, that's okay. That's how John talks, and I'm okay with that. Don't report that. Is that true? Is there that feature?
Absolutely. So built in for any conversation, there's 3 options. And this is something that's sent to the employee. So if you see something that may be potentially harmful, the bot says, hi, we noticed there may be something potentially harmful. How do you feel? And we give the opportunity to say, no, it's okay. Don't even worry about it. Yes, notify anonymously, where it could be sent to the person for direct engagement or to the HR manager based on company policy, or 3, which is honestly the most important, we feel as though, to HR managers. I think this has gone too far. I want something to happen now. The most important thing is at those levels of tension, there needs to be direct involvement. So those three options really gives the employee all options that they need to address potentially harmful or something that doesn't even matter in their day-to-day.
It's so exciting what you're doing. And tell us a little bit about how MindStand is growing and some of the successes that you've been experiencing over the past few months.
Yes, it's so great to see companies both large and small so encouraged by MindStand. Just earlier, 2 days ago, MindStand pitched for the 2021 Minority Innovation Weekend competition, an annual event, and we placed first, the grand prize of $10,000 hosted by Fearless of Baltimore. It's exciting that we've had demos with Facebook, and they've said a tool like MindStand is a mission fit. As they've seen, there needs to be an outside voice towards inclusion and positivity, and we're really excited to begin partnering with Facebook. We have Microsoft as well as a sponsor of our technology, and they're excited to see how MindStand can fit within the Microsoft Teams environment. This all speaks towards our integrations plan. Our goal with MindStand is we want to work with organizations, create case studies to show how different scenarios, how different demographics benefit from MindStand, and then be able to share it at a larger scale. So eventually MindStand can be the cute tool that sits in your Zoom calls to help coach you in real time around inclusive language. Those are all part of the goals of our 13-member team, and each of us are so bought in and excited for the growth of MindStand, especially throughout the rest of this year.
This is amazing. I am excited just over here. I'm over here like, oh my goodness, this is so good. It's so juicy that I'm hoping that people are really grabbing a hold of what you're saying and how important it's more than a product. I hate to say that. It's more than a service. This is a game changer. It is a culture shifter. And so we're just excited again to have you, Michael. And thank you so much again for taking your time to speak with Lynda and I. And we are definitely excited that you tuned in to the conversation today and hope that we can have conversations with your company, your organization. So if you're looking for Lynda and I to do more of that, to come in and again, change the culture of your organization or make some any kind of shift in your organization, we would be more than happy to do that. You can contact us at deiconversations.com. Thank you again, Mr. Michael Ogunsanya. We are excited about having you.
And can I add one thing to that, Michael? How can people get in touch with you? I mean, we know the name of your company, but what would be a great way for people to follow up with you?
Absolutely. So type in MindStand, MindStand.com, and you'll see our story, some amazing news. And on the top right, you can click schedule a demo. And when you click that button, Michael at MindStand.com will follow up, and you can have a great conversation one-on-one with me.
And we know they will have a great conversation one-on-one because we can hear your passion and enthusiasm about this. And again, because you've experienced it, I'm sure that's propelled you to create something that's going to change, again, as Kashonna and I say, the DEI conversations in the workplace. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of this information and enthusiasm.